Hey guys, so I wanted to make a video about this new indicator I published. I haven't made a video in forever. The last one has a really embarrassing typo on it. Anyways, but pretty much, this has been really helpful for me, and I thought it would get more attention than it did, but I'm thinking maybe it might be a little difficult to understand. So one of the main things is that as soon as you open the indicator, it's going to be using what I'm calling the parent scale as a daily trend. And so if you pop up like the 1 minute chart, you may not see the daily trend lines, which I have in yellow here a linear regression line, and then in purple a secant line, which essentially goes to the last pivot point and just attaches to the current price, right? And it sort of lets you see if the price is reaching a trend line pivot point, whether it's support or resistance. The secant line will move wherever the price is moving. And of course, on a smaller scale, for what I'm calling the child scale pivot points, we have the same thing. Okay, now, I designed this more for scalping than for swing trading. I think the daily trend is important. I think a lot of people use it, but I think a really good, what I'm calling scale pair, is actually the 1 minute with the 15 minute if you're trying to scalp. And there is a metric that I don't explicitly mention in this model or indicator that I'm calling scale distance, which is basically the idea that the field that you're the trend that you're trying to trade inside of, that higher time frame trend, um it's basically just trade with the trend, right? It's a lot of traders already know that. All I'm trying to do is show you that visually, right? So right here we have our 1 minute chart, and then we have the 15 minute trend. And right now the 15-minute trend is down, but you can see that the secant line is departing from the linear regression line. That deviation tells you something. A lot of the time, you can see pivot points forming before they're actually designated by the indicator. And obviously, you want to move to have volume behind it, and so we tend to look at volume bars. But what I've actually done here, and this is the key, guys, I really hope you can appreciate this. I've used average true range to actually normalize both price change magnitude and volume magnitude so that they become comparable uh, in a scale invariant way, that lets you know whether the what I'm calling the child regime is actually starting to overwhelm or change the parent regime. Um, and so let me give you an example here, right? So if you look on the right here, this dot is pretty close to the center of this graph. And I had to use a table. Like, the drawing tools in TradingView are not great, and I wanted something that wouldn't skew with your chart, so I was forced to improvise and use literally a table to make this compass. But let me show you how it works. So right here, we are in a down trend. We're about to pivot into a downtrend. Right now we're in a weak uptrend, and you can tell because this right here is closer to the center as opposed to far out. And let me just hit play here so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is going to pivot to the downside soon, and it'll register from the parent regime that there is a pivot point coming. Wow, unless the indicators don't work when you're in replay. I hope that's not true. Yeah, normally this will work during replay. I don't. It could be because I'm using the publishing function right now. Hmm. Well, let's use this live example. So you can see we're currently in a downtrend, right? And I actually developed this to look for similar conditions. Like right now, basically what this indicator is saying, if you look at the right-hand corner here, is that there's strong downward volume on both the large scale and the small scale, right? And so I have the small scale regime with these pivot points here and the large scale with these pivot points. Um, and right now they're both going in the same direction. So this is a high probability downside. At the same time, you can see right here it says terminal pivot low risk, right? And what that's about is what this indicator does is it actually detects clusters of pivot lows from the past, areas of support and resistance, to let you know, hey, statistically, this might actually be the bottom. And again, this is a closed source script, so there's only so much technical information I'm going to give you about that. Also, there's a lot of empirical gating to do with these um, metrics that this indicator measures, and I'm not going to do that work for you. There's a lot of statistical rigor that can be added on top of this. But it works okay for now. I mean, and you can kind of see that the pivot low it's predicting is high probability. We'll see if it happens. This is the live market right now. I don't know if this is going to work. But let's take a look. Let's take a look. Let me, while we're waiting to see if this is calling the turn correctly, I want to explain some of the visuals here. So I have a median line that is centered between the top and the bottom of these child pivot points, and that's designed to be a visual aid to kind of let you see the flow of the price action. It's a little choppy on this asset, but it's just sort of a intuitive thing that I think is helpful. And in my forecast, which actually is predicated on previous phase states in terms of the way it searches the index, also has a projected median line for the projected um, child leg paths. Ultimately, I think this is a really good tool. I'm very proud of this model. I hope people can find use from it. I may need to use it live and make some money with it first before people understand what it is. But if you understand how to trade with a higher time frame trend, I think this should be pretty helpful. One of the things that I added to this is that the current state predicated on this compass is what determines how the indicator looks over the previous index of other what I'm calling child legs, and creates an expected value from them. And it uses a Markov chain that tells, given the current state, what is the most likely sequence of upcoming states. And from those upcoming phase states, you get the most likely geometries and the average geometries of those up versus down child legs. And again, child scale is the chart you're on. Parent scale is what you selected. In this case, I selected 15 minutes. All right, now we're getting a warning about terminal pivot low risk. We can see we're in the upper left-hand quadrant, and the child scale is starting to push against the parent scale. And it's somewhat visible here too. Let me go ahead and turn off these volume bars. You can see, based on these pivot points, that the extremity lower lows and lower highs is starting to sort of level off. You can see that the historical analogs are starting to project something more level. And you can also see that this was a historical level, right? So there is a high probability that this is going to pivot to the upside. I would say that, at the very least, even if it's wrong. Well, anyways, I'm hoping this explained some of it to you. This is pretty much the end of the video. All I'm doing now is I'm really curious if this is going to prove my concept live right now. I mean, it's not really my concept, I guess, but I'm just going to record this and see if the pivot comes. If you have any questions, let me know. If this video helped, let me know. If it didn't help, let me know. If you think this is stupid, let me know. I would just love some feedback. Oh, it's power hour. We're getting close, so that makes sense too. Yep, and you can see the current state affects the projected state. So if negative resonance comes in too hard here, you're going to see the expected value skew. Yep, here we go. We're expecting a long range at this point. It could be a breakdown, I'm not sure. I'm going to guess it's not, given progress on the Iran war and other things, but you guys can always check this chart later too. It's the 26th of June. You can see the time here. I'm going to wait about 20 more seconds, and then this video is a little too long. I think there's a lot of resting liquidity here, so this might be a little bit like watching paint dry and just watching the market range. Okay. Well, like I said, you guys can always check the chart out later. I'm going to go ahead and end the video. Again, give me some feedback if you can. Thanks.